Today, there is no real way to look at the Chargers with a cold, quiet face, because something is starting to move right in the middle of this defense. Derwin James only becomes the full-blown weapon if Elijah Molden is right. Then a massive possibility enters the picture involving a monster from inside the division. After that, Marlowe Wax is trying to take space from veterans, and Caldwell with Eboigbe are battling for respect up front. Hit that like button if you believe this defense can change the entire 2026 destiny of Los Angeles. One thing totally changes how you view Derwin James' new contract. The money is massive, yes, but his real value shows up when this defense can unleash the player he actually is. Derwin sitting back there as a traditional safety all game is still good football. But Derwin near the line of scrimmage, attacking the backfield, reading screens, coming on blitzes, blowing up runs and confusing quarterbacks, that is a completely different level of impact. That is why Elijah Molden has become a way bigger emotional piece than a lot of people probably realize. He is not the name carrying the headline. He is not the $75 million contract. He is not the face of the defense. But if Molden is healthy, steady, and trustworthy on the back end, Chris O'Leary gets permission to do what Chargers fans are dying to see: turn Derwin loose as a living problem for opposing offenses. Daniel Popper ranked Molden among the most important players on the roster heading into 2026. And honestly, that read makes all the sense in the world. Over the last 2 years, when he has been healthy, he has played a lot. 78% of the defensive snaps in 2024, 75% in 2025. The problem was that those injuries from late 2024 carried real weight into the next season. That hamstring issue slowed down his start, kept Molden out of 2 of the first 4 games, and he ended up playing only 12 total games. Even through that, he still gave you 52 combined tackles and 1 pass defended. And you cannot measure the whole thing through stats alone. In Minter's defense, now in O'Leary's hands, communication is gold. Alignment is gold. Pre-snap intelligence is gold. Molden gives you that exact layer of security that lets the coordinator get more aggressive without turning the secondary into some desperate gamble. The battle next to him matters too. R.J. Mickens, Tony Jefferson, and rookie Genesis Smith should all compete for snaps when Derwin drops into nickel or dime. But the pillar of this entire conversation is Molden. If he gets to training camp healthy, as everything seems to point to so far, the Chargers defense does not just gain depth, it gains freedom. And freedom for Derwin James, my friend, is the kind of small detail that can turn into a lockdown Sunday, a 1/3 down, and a big game survived. Now feel that shift, because going from Molden and Derwin to this next name is like leaving a smart defensive conversation and walking straight into thunder inside the AFC West. Maxx Crosby connected to the Chargers in market speculation? That sentence alone makes every fan in Los Angeles lift their head. Not because it is easy, not because the Raiders would wake up thrilled to hand their defensive face to a direct rival, but because if Las Vegas ever opens the door to hear offers, Joe Hortiz would have to at least look inside that room. Crosby signed a massive extension with the Raiders, 3 years and $106.5 million. So we are talking about a high cost, a heavy package, salary cap math, and a negotiation packed with rivalry, pride, and political risk. But football is also about windows. And when you have Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh, and a defense trying to become a real identity, you cannot act like a player of that size would not change the ceiling of the team. Just picture it for 1 second. Crosby attacking from one side, Tuli Tuipulotu growing as a long-term piece, Khalil Mack bringing leadership and mental force, Akeem Messidor showing up as young explosiveness, Bud Dupree keeping the rotation alive, and the rest of the group no longer needing to win every snap at the absolute limit. That is not simply adding another pass rusher. That changes how opponents prepare for the entire week. And the strongest point is this: Herbert cannot keep living in a world where every Sunday feels like it demands offensive perfection. The best help for an elite quarterback is not always another receiver. Sometimes it is a defense that steals possessions, closes the fourth quarter, forces 3rd and long, and makes the other quarterback feel rushed before the ball is even snapped. Crosby represents exactly that kind of controlled violence. I know the scenario is difficult. Crosby himself has publicly reinforced his connection to the Raiders after the new deal, and that makes everything heavier. But as an opportunity read, the idea is enormous. Harbaugh wants trenches. He wants physicality. He wants a team that does not ask permission. And if any chaos ever starts in Las Vegas, the Chargers cannot just watch from a distance with polite faces. Rivalries are won on the field, of course, but sometimes they begin when you have the guts to ask about the player nobody wants to see change sides. And this is where the script changes size. Because Maxx Crosby is the loud dream, the name that makes the whole division turn its head. Marlowe Wax is something different. He is the story of a player who comes in through the side door. No red carpet, no high pick, no guarantee, and still starts making people uncomfortable, especially players who arrived with a lot more status. Wax was born in Baltimore, played at Mount St. Joseph, was viewed as a 3-star recruit, mainly as a running back, and went to Syracuse without that automatic glow of a future national star. But on the field, he just kept stacking proof. 3 sacks and 5.5 tackles for loss as a true freshman. Then 5 more sacks, 8.5 tackles for loss, a starting role, a physical presence, that downhill style that does not apologize when it meets contact. The injury in his final season hurt his draft stock, and then came the hard road. He did not get picked, signed with the Chargers, and had to turn preseason into an argument. And he did exactly that. Wax had a strong 2025 preseason, to the point where he basically forced Los Angeles to keep him on the roster. To me, that says a lot, because undrafted players do not get much margin. They get tested, they get dirty snaps, they get punt coverage, blocks, collisions, repetition on special teams. And Wax answered by playing 17 games, totaling 21 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and appearing on 73% of special team snaps. Now comes the part that tightens the linebacker room. In 2026, he carries a cheap contract, a little over $1 million in cap hit, and he is surrounded by names with resumes who still cannot sleep comfortably. Troy Dye, Del'Shawn Phillips, Denzel Perryman, Junior Colson, all of them are part of this equation of space, role, and trust. Wax does not need to become a star overnight. He needs to prove he can be more than special teams energy. He needs to show processing, discipline, toughness against the run, and real usefulness inside the defense. And I want to feel where the community stands on this one. Do you think Marlowe Wax is ready to steal snaps from a veteran, or is it still too early to put that kind of weight on him? Because my feeling is that this is exactly the type of battle that builds a team's identity. It is not glamour, it is survival. It is a young player trying to rip away a role by force, and the Chargers need that kind of hunger at the bottom of the roster. And after talking about Wax trying to climb the hierarchy, the final story takes that same energy to the defensive line. Because this Chargers defense is not being built only with stars, big contracts, and names that make noise. It also depends on that group that decides, in July and August, who can take punishment, who can hold a gap, who can do the job that never becomes a highlight but changes a coordinator's life. The departures of Deshaun Hand and Otito Ogbonnia opened space. Odafe Owe went to Washington, Benjamin St-Juste went to Green Bay, and Los Angeles answered in several ways. Akeem Mesidor in the first round, Dalvin Tomlinson arriving to add weight inside, Nick Barrett coming in the 5th round, plus a defensive back group that has to make up for lost snaps. But the hidden point here is different. Mike Elston wants a more versatile front, with players moving across the line to create confusion. And when a coach talks about versatility, he is also saying one thing without actually saying it. If you only do one job, you better prove that job is good enough. That is where Jamaree Caldwell and Justin Eboigbe enter a very serious fight. Caldwell played 48% of the defensive snaps as a rookie, with 31 combined tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 1 quarterback hit. That is not production's screaming superstar, but it is a real foundation. And more importantly, when aligned more outside, he has already shown interesting traits, both in college and in his first year with the Chargers. In a defense that wants to mix fronts, that can become a path to more snaps. Eboigbe has a different kind of pressure. He jumped from 7% of the snaps as a rookie in 2024 to 40% last season. That shows growing trust, but it also raises the expectation. If you have already gotten on the field more, now you need to turn presence into impact. He has lined up almost entirely as a defensive tackle over the last 2 years, so the practical question is simple. Can he become more than a rotational body? With Tomlinson and Teair Tart likely holding down the middle in the nickel and dime packages that help maximize Derwin, maybe Caldwell, Eboigbe, and Barrett are not starters in that most common look. But you do not win a season with one single blueprint. O'Leary and Elston will need 5-man fronts, fresh rotation, answers against the run, and variations that force offenses to think. And if Caldwell or Eboigbe makes that jump, the Chargers do not just gain depth, they gain a defense that is less predictable, heavier, and more ready to survive when the game gets ugly. When you pull these 4 stories together, they all say the same thing through different paths. The Chargers are trying to turn talent into reliable structure. A healthy Molden frees Derwin. Crosby, even as a difficult possibility, shows the size of the ambition that would make sense. Wax represents hunger, roster depth, a cheap player trying to become an answer. Caldwell and Eboigbe carry the quiet fight that could decide the defensive line rotation. That is what I want from Los Angeles. Fewer pretty promises, more proof when the game gets tight. If you believe this defense can become the engine of 2026, subscribe to the channel and stay with Bolt Nation.